Why, hello there. Welcome to Friday Night Games. I'm your host, Jay Comics. I've just been having a go at this fancy new Game & Watch Gold. Yes. What a humdinger of a game, yes indeedy. Why, I'd say Nintendo has really outdone themselves this time. Is someone putting me on here, or is the aspect ratio growing?
Oh, I get it! Today's episode is about the Game & Watch widescreen series. Man, with all this extra real estate, the Game & Watch possibilities are endless. What cutting-edge game ideas will Nintendo introduce this time? Alright, picture this. You're a chef. I swear it's better than it looks. Hello everyone! I hope you've brought your appetite because I've got a full platter of delectable Game & Watches for you today. This time Nintendo added 42mm of screen space so you know they ain't messing around. But before we dig in, if you haven't seen the previous Game & Watch episodes, you should check them out first and get all caught up. Summer 1981. The average rent in the US was $300, Raiders of the Lost Ark was just released, Ronald Reagan became president, God help us all. But for Nintendo, it's known as the year Donkey Kong was released to arcades. Mario was about to make his glorious debut. Meanwhile, however, Nintendo R&D 1 was starting to realize the impact the Game & Watch line was making throughout Japan and the world. Their newest line, the widescreen series, began releasing a few months prior to Donkey Kong's release, introducing a larger screen, which allowed for more compelling and impressive visuals. In terms of hardware, the widescreen is mostly the same as the Gold series. It has a larger screen, but in nearly every other aspect, it's almost identical. Personally, I'm glad they kept the alarm feature and the kickstand on the back, as well as the ability to clear your misses once you reach 200 or 500 points in each game. Alright, let's play some of these suckers. Our first game is the ever-iconic Parachute, releasing mere weeks before Donkey Kong hit arcades. Makoto Kano, creator of the Game & Watch series visuals, has said that it was one of his favorites in the series and marked the time when he realized how successful the Game & Watches were getting. The first thing I notice is that the pace of Parachute is far quicker than the prior Game & Watch titles. Yes, please. In mere seconds, you'll already be guilty of criminal negligence. Hell yeah, dude. You'll notice that the longer you look at this scene, the more questions you'll have. We're controlling this terrified man in a lifeboat as he rescues these little Mr. Game & Watches as they parachute towards shark-infested waters. Pretty standard, but then you notice the helicopter is just fine. It's not on fire or anything. It's at least gotta be safer than blindly jumping into a tiny lifeboat while sharks circle around. Game A and B are basically the same, except for this guy over here. He's just a hot mess. It's a good game, try it out! Just days before Donkey Kong shook the gaming world, we have the release of Octopus. Once again, the UK did not read the room and renamed Octopus not once, but twice, calling it both Mysteries of the Sea and Mysteries of the Deep. What, is Octopus another euphemism in the UK? Come on, you fucking wanky jangler, you're a right proper octopus nibbler. Oh, Bob's me uncle and bangers on mash. Hard to believe I've never been to England with such an authentic accent, I know. But back to Octopus. Look at this game, it's beautiful. We've got this big old lovable octopus stoned out of his damn mind, a cool detailed ghost ship, sunken treasure. It's gotta be the best looking Game & Watch to date and with the gameplay to match. You play as these divers and you gotta go down and gather treasure while dodging the octopus tentacles so you don't become a hentai. Each time you grab some treasure it gives you 1 point, and if you make it back to the boat you get 3 points. I love the little details of this game. Like how each time you die, the divers move over, making it seem like each diver is a different person. It definitely feels like they put a lot of time and effort into this one, and it paid off. Definitely one of the highlights of the widescreen series. Shortly after Octopus, Donkey Kong sent ripples through arcades everywhere, as well as Nintendo's pocketbooks. All of a sudden, Nintendo had the money and reputation to obtain licenses for iconic cartoon characters like Popeye the Sailor, the very first Game & Watch featuring a licensed character. A bit of karmic justice, since you'll recall that Shigeru Miyamoto had originally intended for Donkey Kong to be a Popeye game, but Nintendo couldn't get the license. So here we are, mere weeks after the release of Donkey Kong, and King Features is all,
"Shut up and take my
Popeye the Sailor video game rights."
man, who doesn't love Popeye? I remember watching Popeye the Sailor cartoons when I was a kid with my dad. The animation in those cartoons definitely helped inspire my love of animation. Nowadays, Popeye isn't nearly as big of a deal, but back in the late 30s, Popeye was more popular than Mickey Mouse. It's really cool to me that the very first Popeye video game was a Game & Watch game by Nintendo. And the game, you couldn't ask for a finer single-screen representation of the spinach addict himself. Just look at this. I see no difference. And apparently this Game & Watch comes with a story. You control Popeye as he and Olive Oyl prepare for a trip. That's the story. And honestly, who wrote this? Because they deserve a raise! Olive Oyl tosses spinach cans, pineapples, and beer bottles from the car. Lots of beer. Just so much beer. Why do you need so much beer, Popsy? What did the Navy do to you, bro? I'm just kidding, toss me a cold one, buddy! Bluto, the perennial douchebag, is here too, of course. He tries punching Popeye into the water every so often. In Game B, he switches from one side to the other in typical Chad fashion. It's a really fun game, coupled with these adorably wonderful character sprites. It's the perfect combination of Game & Watch and Popeye. 9 out of 10, check it out if you're a beta male. At this point, R&D1 has really hit their stride, producing a Game & Watch per month. With the arrival of fall came another iconic gem, Chef. Chef is yet another favorite of mine, and it's the only widescreen game I actually own physically. It heavily simulates working in the food industry as you start off with 4 line cooks, and 3 of them immediately ditch. One quits, one leaves for a smoke break, and the other one fakes vomiting so he can go to a concert. At least that's how I read it. You control this final overworked chef, trying to juggle different pieces of meat, while hungry rats wait for you to mess up so they can feast on your failure. Yes, it's all very deep and symbolic, and yeah, I mean, it should probably win a Golden Emmy Award or something, I don't know. Makoto Kano's illustrations are once again lively and expressive, and the game is fast-paced. Game A and B are the same, except that Game B has you juggling 4 pieces of meat instead of just 3. We've all been there before, eh, ladies? I have a lot of fun with this one. In a way, this is a much improved version of Ball, as it's essentially just juggling. Another instant classic. Just before Halloween, Nintendo releases our spookiest game yet, Mickey Mouse. This one is naturally dyed red with the blood of sweatshop workers. Nintendo and Disney had previously worked together, so it makes sense that Nintendo could obtain the Mickey Mouse license. Once again, Nintendo makes the first ever video game of an extremely iconic character. We find Mickey in his typical cartoon scenario of gathering eggs. You use the 4 buttons on the sides to move Mickey to catch the eggs before they fall and hatch. Both Mickey Mouse and Popeye allow for more misses than the typical Game & Watch. In this game, if you drop an egg while Minnie Mouse is in the window, it gives you an extra try. My guess is that Nintendo wanted the licensed games to be a bit more accessible than the typical Game & Watch, so they toned down the punishments. Very PC, very SJW, clearly pandering to political agendas. And like with Popeye, this game also has a story. Chicken lays eggs. Control Mickey Mouse so that he catches them in his basket. There are 4 control buttons. It's the award-winning writing that we've all come to expect from Disney at this point. Overall, I do think the game works well, and I do like seeing Mickey Mouse on a Game & Watch. But it's also a game for baby wabies and not true gamers. 0 out of 10 needs bigger boobs.
Before we continue, I'd just like to take a minute.
Wait a second, what the fuck is this shit?
So go to the link bullshit.com/jcomics for your free code.
Now we come to one of the rarest of all Game & Watches. That's right, I'm talking about the illustrious Egg, released the same day as Mickey Mouse. The first thing you'll probably notice is that this is the exact same game as Mickey Mouse. And if you think that, you're freaking wrong! Because it's not the same game, idiot! There's a wolf in this one! Okay, you're really not that much of an idiot because, truth be told, this is the same game. Nintendo swapped Mickey Mouse out for the wolf so they could still sell it in countries that had complications with the Disney license. The funny thing is that Egg, as a concept, makes so much more sense than Mickey Mouse. Why would Mickey Mouse even be gathering eggs? Everyone knows Mickey would never do that. It completely goes against his character. However, why is this wolf gathering eggs? Because we all know wolves like quiche. It makes sense. He's even got the expression like, I'm gonna have some quiche tonight. This wolf is really great. I love that he even looks like a Disney character. And I also like the risk Nintendo took here in making us play as the villain of the game. A cold-hearted egg thief, if you will. It's a bold subversion of the hero-villain dichotomy, forcing us to think of this barnyard world with a sort of moral grayness. An ethical quandary with broad ramifications. Wait, what's in this manual? A cock appears and disappears at 5-second intervals? Cock. Next up, we have the return of a classic. Fire is the first remake in the Game & Watch line and just in time for Christmas. That's right, remaking games is not a modern concept. It's been going on since Nintendo first entered the gaming market. Fire is a great example of how far R&D1 has come in terms of understanding the Game & Watch and its potential. It's the same game as the original, but improved in nearly every conceivable way. The graphics, for one, look so much better. The character sprites are even more expressive and animated than they were before, and the gameplay got a much-needed boost. Instead of getting a single point for each evacuee that reaches the ambulance, you also get a point each time you bounce them, which speeds the game up a lot. In Game B, you also have evacuees jumping from different heights, giving an added layer of difficulty. We also get a definitive confirmation that if you miss catching an evacuee, they definitely die. Thankfully, this fuels right into my millennial mind's lust for violence in video games. This version of Fire is once again highly recommended, being even better than the original. Nintendo ushered in the following year, 1982, with Turtle Bridge, right at the top of February. And with it came this really cool black and white faceplate redesign. For the first time, Nintendo dropped the standard gold and silver faceplates and tried something new. I think it looks really cool, but I'm also a fucking dweeb, so what do I know? Turtle Bridge is the brainchild of Masao Yamamoto. You control this guy trying to take luggage from one side of the river to the other, wisely using the backs of turtles as a bridge. This makes a lot of sense, except that it doesn't. The fishes rise from the bottom of the river and the turtles, ignoring your obvious struggle, inconsiderately dive into the water to eat the fish. If you fall in the water, you get a miss. The faster you can make it back to the starting point, the more points you get, up to 12. Like the other games in the widescreen series, once you reach 200 or 500 points, you clear all of your misses. However, Turtle Bridge also introduces the concept of Chance Time! No, not that Chance Time. In Game & Watch Chance Time, if you haven't gotten any misses, once you get to 200 or 500 points, you get a bonus phase. In this case, the turtles don't move and no fish come up for a while. I like Turtle Bridge, but it's also really slowly paced. It's a game that requires a lot of patience, and while yes, I am known for my patience, I also get bored really quickly and I hate waiting. Definitely worth a try though. Just a little over a month later, Nintendo's next game would be another Fire-related title, Fire Attack. This game would introduce another first for the company. Racism! Wow! Just a lot of racism! Yikes! Oh my god, I hate it! This is like the feeling you get when you learn your favorite teacher did blackface for Halloween in college. I know Japan didn't have the best understanding of the atrocities of America's westward expansion, so they were probably going off of America's whitewashed exports which glorified the cowboys and villainized the Indians, but it doesn't really make it any less fucked up or uncomfortable. So, you play as a guy who built a fort on some stolen land that the Native Americans are clearly not okay with. Instead of accepting this and going somewhere else, it gets to the point where they're trying to burn the fort down and he's using a hammer to bash their heads in. Just a little lighthearted romp through America's disturbing history for the kiddos. It's a damn shame how fucked up this is, cause other than the overt racism and scenario, this game is actually pretty fun. I like the balance of difficulty in this game, and the gameplay is something we haven't really had up to this point before. The background art also looks really great. I'm a big fan of the Red Rock Desert vistas with mesas. It's a damn shame that this game had to be painted over with this. In later releases, Nintendo tried to avoid controversy by removing the feathers and loincloths from the natives. Anyway, Fire Attack. I can't really recommend it in good conscience, but if you do want to give it a try, I'd check out the Game & Watch Gallery versions, which at least attempt to remove some of the insensitivities. And we've made it to our final game in the widescreen series. As their final hurrah, Nintendo was able to snag their third license to an iconic character with Snoopy Tennis. Snoopy Tennis returns to the classic widescreen faceplate design, but with a light purple trim. In this game, you control the ever-adorable Snoopy as you play tennis with Charlie Brown. In typical Charlie Brown fashion, he takes a million years to hit the dang ball. In Game A especially, it takes a long time to get going because Charlie Brown is just...
I never knew I could be so stupid.
Luckily, Lucy shows up every once in a while and smacks the tennis ball, making it go much faster and speeding up the gameplay. You move Snoopy up and down this tree, and if you miss, Snoopy takes a little snooze break. Game B is of course faster than Game A, and chance time will also increase the amount of points you earn for hitting a tennis ball. It's a really cute little game. I really love the character models and the background. Plus, Woodstock is the alarm. 10 out of 10 needs more Woodstock. Definitely worth a try. And that will round out the widescreen series. Man, what a journey! To me, the widescreen series represents the culmination of everything R&D1 learned up to this point. All of the improvements made over the previous two series, as well as a larger screen, helped the series have more longevity than some of the others. It also had a lot of firsts. The very first licensed Game & Watch, the first video games to feature Popeye, Mickey Mouse, and Snoopy, the first chance time, the first Game & Watch targeting countries outside Japan, the first major faceplate redesign, and the first embarrassing racist one. Much of the art in these games would also become iconic for fans. The octopus, the parachute, the chef and his sausages, the turtles. It was a great series, and it had a lot of variety. Moving forward, Nintendo would begin to mix things up in unexpected and sometimes strange ways. It seems that the end of the widescreen era signaled the end of the more simplistic design of the first three Game & Watch series. And before I go, I'd also like to do another subscriber shoutout. Ridlex is a new subscriber from Reddit and a fan of Game & Watches. They even offered to let me borrow their copy of Oil Panic for a video. I already have one, but it was incredibly cool of them to offer. Thank you, Ridlex, you rock! Next time, we'll be diving into one of the biggest advancements of the Game & Watch, the multi-screen series. You won't want to miss it, so make sure you subscribe so you can stay tuned for more Friday Night Games.
Show a little bit of behind the scenes magic. This is where it all happens. Hey kids, marijuana might sound fun. Alright, it's time for some behind the scenes J-Comics shit. Hey kids, you should probably wait for marriage to have sex. Otherwise, you might jump into a... Hey, it's time for a word from Mr. Game & Watch, behind the scenes J-Comics style. They're gonna kill me. They're gonna kill me. Please help me. No!